Welcome to Chatsunami. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Chatsunami. I'm Satsunami and unfortunately my usual co-host isn't here because I may or may not have made him watch a particular film about birds and the upcoming birdemic, as it were. So he has ran away for this week. So instead I thought, how could I actually follow up with this? And I thought, you know what? Let's follow up with a bad video game. And I thought, especially with this particular game, I thought, who can I get to help me? And you know what? I couldn't think of anyone like better or more suited like for this role than, you know, the amazing Super Shadow 271. Shadow, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I had a blast last time.
Oh yeah, no, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to the episode, Shadow and I had, basically we were just talking about really all things Sonic and streaming last time. And
Yeah, I do like to think of myself as a Sonic aficionado,
yeah. So if you'd like to hear like our opinions on Sonic there, yeah, feel free to give that a listen. It will definitely, it's a good appetizer for this one.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, yeah, I've kind of like spilled the beans there that today we are going to be talking about, how can we call this game? It is kind of weird because you would think, you know, by the title it's called Sonic the Hedgehog, but it is right to assume, isn't it, that this game has like several different names.
Yes, I most commonly it's '06 just because of the year. I know they intended it as a reboot of the franchise, so they were trying to do the edgy reboot with the same name. That's ultimately why they chose the name, but I prefer '06.
Yeah, there was Sonic Next Gen as well, was there not? Or
yeah, there were several different like names for it.
Or I think the most infamous one, I think I brought this up to you last time, but the most infamous one was like the successor to like Sonic Adventure, and I don't think that caught on somehow.
Yeah, well, sort of. There are a lot of people who say that this is basically Sonic Adventure 3. I heavily disagree, but there are people who say it.
Yes. Let's just say a lot of the younger fan base, I think, say that.
I also kind of take issue because, again, I couldn't find the exact quote, but they kind of considered Heroes to be Adventure 3 already. So I always took issue with people saying that this was Adventure 3 because it just always felt like Sega just kind of always called the games like that.
Adventure.
So, yeah, I mean, they knew Adventure was popular, so they were like, hey, if we say this is like Adventure, people will be interested.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Is, you know in those old cartoons where the guy has like the cardboard box and then he's got the stick that props up the box and then underneath it's always the bait? I feel as if like that's Sega, but they just put like... like Sonic Adventure 3, they've just kind of written it on a napkin and they've just thrown it under, and then all of the hungry fanboys trying to go under to get it.
Yeah, it's so funny, especially if you follow the Sonic Twitter account and other Sonic social media. They always reference Adventure in tons of different posts. And everyone always goes like, oh boy, adventure references, and they just never do anything with it.
It's like, okay, I hear you. You want a Sonic Colors remake? And it's like, no, no.
Yeah. I hear you. You want a Breath of the Wild style game?
Oh, right.
No, I don't.
It's like, right, okay. I hear you. So what you want is a man in the Olympics dressed up as Sonic, and it's like, Sega, what are you doing? What are you actually doing now? Now you're just taking the
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know like what I mean, that is a genuine thing. Sonic is going to be in like the Olympic game, well, not the real one, but well, maybe, I don't know, it's not been announced. But like in the like Japan, it's Japan, isn't it? The Tokyo Olympics, I think.
Yes, Tokyo.
Yeah, and it's like they've got DLC for it where you can dress your guy as Sonic the Hedgehog to run, and it is like the most uncanny valley stuff.
Yes.
Ever.
It, yeah, it's also totally unnecessary to announce because that really feels like just one of those silly unlockables that most people don't really think about. It's just so bizarre. But it's funny too because there were people who were going like right before Mania was announced, they posted all this classic Sonic memes. So like now that they're posting a lot of adventure memes, maybe they'll announce a new adventure game. They just never did. Always that carrot on a stick, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's always the bait just out of reach. But that's
Yep.
actually quite interesting, though. Like, speaking of kind of, well, Sega baiting the fans, which is something I think they've got down to a fine art now. You know, like, with a lot of games like, you know, Sonic Forces, Generations, and things like that, you know, some are good bait, others
Yeah.
are like, why did you make me play this, Sega? But especially for this game, because, like, do you remember, like, when we were growing up, do you remember the landscape for Sonic at the time before this came out? So around, like, 2005 era?
Yes. Yeah. I remember it very well.
Yeah. When it was like, I don't know, would you say Sonic was on, like, its, like, the peak of its popularity before, you know, the infamous Shadow the Hedgehog game came out?
Yeah, I would actually agree with that. I think, and especially part of why I hate '06 so much is because I think it was the turning point from people being positive on Sonic to being negative on Sonic. Around that time, I remembered people being, fairly charitable to like Heroes and even Shadow to an extent. But after '06 came out, everyone is just like, these games are irredeemable, they're garbage, don't even bother.
Yeah.
And I think '06 retroactively made people hate those games.
It is. Do you know what it reminds me of? It's like, have you ever seen that Simpsons clip? And this is something like I always reference on the channel. I don't know why I find it so funny, but it seems kind of apt for this. But it's. Do you remember the episode of The Simpsons where I think it's the one where Lisa becomes a vegetarian and she releases like the pig? She basically like throws the barbecue like down a hill, and the pig starts like flying, and they're trying to catch it. And throughout the whole thing, Homer's yelling, "It's still good, it's still good." And it's like, it like goes in the water and it's got all sludge on it, and Homer's like, "It's got a bit of sludge on it, it's still good, it's still good."
Yeah.
And then it like
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
like sucked down to the sewer, and it's like, "It's still good." And Bart just has to say at the end, "It's gone, Dad." And he's like, "I know." That's honestly how I feel as if like between 2003 and maybe 2005, because I think 2003 was the, oh no, it might have been earlier, like was it
Yeah.
2001 that was the remakes for Adventure?
Yeah, 2001 was when Adventure 2 and stuff came to like the GameCube, and
Yeah.
they had not yet made Heroes. I mean, personally, I think that was the peak in terms of quality, but in terms of popularity, I think '06 was really the turning point.
Oh yeah, that I think that was the time where people just went, "It's gone." Because I remember being online at the time and seeing like all the hardcore fans be like, you know, try to defend it, but then when you
Yeah.
actually play the game, you're just like, this is not a good game, which we will go into. But I mean, at the time though, it was starting to kind of peter out. I don't think it was like at meme status, but I think it
Yeah.
was like getting there. Like even with Heroes, like Heroes is by far, it's not my favorite game personally, but I can appreciate like what they were trying to do. It's a competent enough
Yeah.
game.
Same here.
Shadow the Hedgehog though, like I think that's when people started to raise eyebrows and think, "What are you
Yeah.
doing?"
That was definitely like a crack in the armor of Sonic's reputation. To me, like Shadow was definitely a huge misstep, but there were definitely I remember a lot of people being like, "Yeah, it's bad, but like we still got, other things on the horizon."
Yeah.
Sonic people liked Heroes generally. So like it was kind of just a primer for what '06 would do for the franchise. That's kind of my memory of it, at least.
Is it correct in saying that you, because I think I have asked you this in the last time we talked, but you didn't play Sonic 06 when it came out, did you?
I only ever played it at like a friend's house because
Oh,
he
yeah.
had like a 360 and he was like, "Hey, there's the multiplayer and you could play as Silver," and it was awful.
Oh. God,
So
I can just imagine that, like, being excited about playing it, and then when you actually do, you're like, "Oh no. Oh no, no, no." Yeah.
absolutely, it was like I can't believe this is that bad.
Oh, I honestly, I can only imagine the disappointment. Did you not even think, you know how you play like a bit of a game and it's bad, and you think, oh, maybe it's redeemable like elsewhere?
Yes.
If you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like you could say, oh, maybe it's like a good game, and I've just played like the bad bit.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well, to kind of go on a bit of a sidetrack, like
yeah.
I believe Final Fantasy 13's like director or something like that. One
Mhm.
of them went, it only gets good like 20 hours in or something like that, and that drew a lot of really heavy criticism
Mhm.
because why would you want to put up with a game for 20 hours
Yeah.
for it to start getting good? You kind of always think that, especially when you're a Sonic fan, kind of learn that a lot of reviews and
Mhm.
things will be overly negative, at least to me. So, I try and go into it with an open mind. And some games surprise me and some don't. This was definitely like a disaster, though.
I mean, I've had friends like that, like not even for video games, but for like, I think it was like a TV series one of my friends recommended, and they were like, oh, it's great, it's a really good show. It gets good in like season like 4 or 5 or something. Like, what? Who's going to stick? Like, there's exceptions, of course. Like, there are exceptions, but normally, if a show like you have to wait till it gets that good, like halfway through it, you're like, no. And especially with Sonic as well. Like, I mean, this
Yeah.
game didn't get better throughout, but we will come to that.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, I have to admit, this is like my gaming confession, and I think I brought it up last time. Can't even remember when the PlayStation 3 came out, but it was the only, like, not the only reason, but this game was actually the reason why I bought a PlayStation 3.
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
a,
yeah, you did mention that last time.
I feel like I'm in a confession booth right now. Like, forgive me, Shadow, for I have sinned. I bought Sonic 06 on the PlayStation, which is not only like the worst version of Sonic. 06, like genuinely, like the loading times are longer, the it lags a
Hmm.
lot more, and
Yep.
I'm the kind of sadist who actually went out and bought the 360 version for streaming. I'm going to say that. I bought it for
Yes.
professional reasons. Business, not pleasure. And the reason I
Yeah.
bought it was, like, because everyone said, oh, it's a better version. Not by much, but it makes it a bit
Yeah.
more bearable, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those like if you're
Yeah.
going to have to go through it, at least do like the
Yeah.
slightly less irritating version.
Oh god, absolutely. So I waited for it, and I always remember like I remember playing Shadow the Hedgehog in 2005 and being
Hmm.
like I was really excited to play it, and then when I played it, I was kind of like, is this it? I wasn't. It wasn't my favorite game, and especially with Heroes as well. I just didn't like that. The
Yeah.
kind of plasticky looking. Like I really hate the
Yes, yeah.
models. See for those games, like I. It sounds like a really petty thing to say, but I really hate the
No,
models.
it's
For them.
fair.
I just
Yeah,
I
it's totally fair.
I cannot like just I can't not I'm saying I'm not trying to be dramatic to be like I hate them. I hate that hedgehog, but like I really didn't like them. So when I saw Sonic 06, and you know how like the kind of promotional material for it, where it was just Sonic running through the woods, he was fighting these
Yes.
semi-realistic robots, which looked brilliant at the time. And you think,
Hmm.
oh, this is going to be so cool, we're going to play as Sonic and everything. And then the game came out, and you're like, well, my childhood is over.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
anybody else?
It's
Oh.
so funny because like the lead up to '06, people were genuinely excited for it. It did look quite like visually amazing, and of course, no company's ever going to be like, yeah, this game isn't finished, or we're not going to
Yeah.
put effort into this game. So clearly, everyone was like, hey, this Sega says they're going to put in the effort, and this
Yeah.
game looks amazing. Let's give it a try, a shot, and we all know how that went.
Yeah, because I think at this stage, I think everybody knows that like it was a rush job,
Yes.
and they
Yeah, I was reading that development started in like late 2004, early 2005-ish. They don't have an exact estimate. To think that such an ambitious idea for a game only had around a year to be developed, I mean, even nowadays, that is a very big ask. And there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes that we kind of understand, but not, I don't think fully understand. I
Yeah.
don't know if we ever will.
No, unless there's like an expose.
Yeah, yeah. I've read a couple that try to be, but it's not as in detail as you would want, you know?
Yeah. Was it more of a like he said, she said kind of deal?
Yeah, pretty much. Sega's never going to comment on it, so, they talk to a few developers and, they'll say certain things,
Hmm.
but there's no good timeline, there's no major
Yeah.
proof of it. It's just a matter of trusting whoever says. I am admittedly very fascinated by the development history because there are quite a few different factors that went into making it such a dumpster fire. Obviously, this was the game where Yuji Naka, Sonic's programmer and main face left. He left the company. He took people with him. It caused a huge shakeup at Sega because there was no leadership for Sonic. They split the team even further because so the Wii was underpowered, which would have meant a much longer development time for the game. So they scrapped the Wii version, but they still wanted something for the Wii, so they split their team again to make Sonic and the Secret Rings. So like all these different things were piling on, and of course, notoriously, Sega refused to extend the launch day for the game because they wanted it to be on Sonic's anniversary. It's just all those things culminated in this game.
I honestly wonder if an extended deadline would have helped this game.
It's tough for me because I don't know if you've heard of Project 06, which is a fan effort to make like a native PC version of the game and
Oh
fix a
yeah.
lot of its problems. I was saying this where I applaud that effort, and I'm not one to tell them that they shouldn't do something, but like to me, Sonic's or O six's problems are so deep in its design that to fix it, you would basically just be making an entirely new game. I don't think any amount of development time could really fix that, you know?
I don't like there are some like this is a very ambitious game. Like it's
It's very,
massive. Like considering the other ones are very. I mean, maybe not Sonic Adventure 1 because although it was small, it did have like a hub world and things. And it
yes,
had
yeah.
that kind of exploration like environment, whereas for this one it had like I think it had three of them technically. Not very good ones, but it had
Yeah.
three. It did have three.
Well, actually, if I remember, a couple of the levels were actually intended to be hub world, but they didn't have the time, so they just made them levels. They did plan a lot.
Speaking of this game, yeah, you and I have both played this and we have both completed
Yep.
it, and it is a game. I hate to say it, it's not the worst game I've ever played. I'm going to get that out of the way now. Like, it's not, because I feel as if a lot of people do riff on the game and say, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And don't get me wrong, it's
Yeah.
terrible, but
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't, like, would you say it's one of the worst games you've ever played, or would you say it's, like, kind of middle?
It's tough. I would still say it's one of the worst games I've played, but I do think there are redeeming things about it. And it's very weird for me to have to say that because it certainly does take certain inspirations from a bunch of different Sonic games, and I do recognize certain things, like the fact that they have hub worlds and stuff. It is, it's very clear that they wanted to do a whole lot, so I applaud them for that, and the music is definitely amazing. I don't know, it's tough to say because it does function so horribly, and so many things were just so poorly thought out that I struggle to think of games that I would consider just worse, you know?
I mean, I suppose it's like a game that purposely is terrible, like
Yeah.
I'm thinking like I don't know, oh, what do you call that game with the lorries? That's like
Um,
horribly Roads Rig or something. I can't even remember.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
or Road
Like
to
a
Redemption or something. Like a game that's like purposely broken.
I mean, I think it was purposely broken in the sense that the developers probably knew that they didn't have the time to fix so
Oh
many
yeah.
issues. So it's a miracle that that game runs at all.
I mean, it's.
The
So I was just going to say, it's like held together with like duct tape and prayer at times.
yes, yeah.
And I mean, some of the choices like are just like. So sorry, before we actually get into it, will we talk about the story of this game?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
because it is quite interesting because it does something very similar. So this is where I think the parallels to Sonic Adventure come in, where you've got three separate stories and they all kind of converge into one another. So you have to play
Right.
like the different perspectives. So of course you've got
Yes.
the three main characters. You've got Sonic, Shadow, and a new character at the time called Silver the Hedgehog, who, for all you Dragon Ball fans out there, is basically just like Trunks from Dragon Ball
Yes.
Z, isn't he?
Yep.
He's like a hedgehog from the future. He's got psychic powers. it's a really cool idea that they
Yeah.
brought in, but like we'll talk
Well,
about it.
that's kind of my thoughts on it. Certain things like on paper sound like good ideas. You know, another Hedgehog to coincide with a kind of more open style game, and basing it off of Dragon Ball. When even since Sonic 2, we've been taking ideas from Dragon Ball. And although and I have to say, one of the weirdest choices about the story was casting Blaze and like giving her an entirely new backstory and stuff.
Yeah,
I feel like people don't really focus on that a whole lot, but that was a big thing for me back in the day because I loved the Rush games. When it's like, hey, here's Blaze, but she has nothing to do with anything like the Rush games. It's another decision that just blows my mind.
just seems like it's a game though that everything is going on. It's almost like everything's going on, but at the same time, nothing's going on. If you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
especially Sonic's story. Like usually, like as I say for the adventure games, there's usually like a kind of overarching plot where it's like, oh, we're gonna stop Eggman and we're gonna stop like whatever big bad guy is after,
Yeah.
whether it be like Chaos, the Bio Lizard, whatever.
Hmm.
In this one, ironically enough, Sonic assumes the role of Mario, where he has to save a princess about a
Yeah,
grand
huh.
total of 3 times. And it just
Yeah.
gets so repetitive. It's like, oh, we rescued the princess. Oh no, she's kidnapped. Oh, we rescued her again. Oh, she's kidnapped. Oh no, we
Yeah.
rescued her again. Oh, she got a free coffee. Ah, shit, she's kidnapped. It's like, it just kept going back and forth, and you're like,
Yeah. Oh no, it's decaf.
yeah, exactly. It's like, heck man, you son of a bitch. How dare you?
Oh.
Like, usually the Sonic story is the strongest one, but
Mhm.
it was not. It really wasn't. Like, it was the most neutral, I would say.
Yeah. I
Like,
guess I could agree to that.
like out of the
I,
three, I mean, like it was kind of the
yeah.
standard go from point A to B, try and find Elise, who is the
Yes. Yeah.
Final Fantasy princess, and
Yep.
oh god, sorry, I know that's like a thing that people say a lot about this game, but
Yes.
I honestly have. Like, I'm gonna ask you something. Like, see the
Sure.
first time you saw Sonic beside Elise, what did you think?
Mhm.
Or just beside any other human in this game, what did you think?
I it was honestly it was so surreal because it just looked so wrong, you know?
Yeah,
The humans are all normally proportioned, fairly realistic humans, and then there's just Sonic who looks like a Gmod character like
it
right
really
next to her.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
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 because of
so-
these.
still hard to wrap my mind around.
It's the side, like I said this when I did and I know I'm a sadist. I did the 6 hour stream of this, and I only got through Sonic's story. This is how long the game is. It is a
Yeah.
slog, but like the size of Sonic's head, I kept saying throughout the playthrough, I was like, look at the size of his head, like compared to Elise, who of course is the quote unquote love interest, which I know, like
Yeah.
everybody, everybody I think has ranted on that, but like his
Yeah,
head
yeah.
is huge. Like if she curled up like into a ball, she would be the same size as his head. I guarantee it. And it's like that just is weird. Like even with the adventure games, maybe like
Well, the adventure games, they had kind of more cartoony proportions, the humans.
yeah,
So like you could kind of see where the two like met aesthetically.
yeah,
But the 06 was really just it felt like, hey, we have a totally different game and we need to shove Sonic in it.
it
It just did
honestly,
not look good.
it honestly feels like that because the tone in this game as well. Like, I mean, forget the design because it's like it's a really. Do you know what it reminds me of? And this is gonna sound weird, but have you ever seen those videos where it's like X character in Unity Engine?
Oh yes,
So
yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Mario in like a hyper realistic field with like realistic
Yep.
deer and it looks so
Yep.
wrong
Yes.
because it's just Mario, running about. You're like this looks weird, but it's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
that. Maybe not as detailed, but it's like, I mean, the set pieces are really nice looking, at least for the time. Like
Right.
Soliana, which is like I think Venice 2.0, really, in this
Yes,
game
yeah.
is just like it is so right. Like it's a nice set piece, but to put Sonic into it, it just seems I don't know, like seems
Yeah.
kind of strange. Like, did you like it?
Uh,
Or,
well, the thing is, I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea of setting Sonic in sort of real world-ish location, because like Sonic Adventure 2 was basically taking place in San Francisco.
ah,
So,
true.
it's not like he can't be in real world places. I
Mhm.
think it's just you have to really work to make that style all feel cohesive. And they just didn't. And I think that's more time constraints and other, pressure
Oh, yeah.
being placed. I don't think it was malicious, but at the
Oh,
end of
no.
the day, it's still not pleasing.
Oh yeah, it honestly sticks out like a sore thumb. I can't even remember what you call them, but it's like imagine you're playing with, like, for anyone who hasn't played this, imagine you're playing with like Legos or Lego, and then all of a sudden someone gets like one of those big Duplo people and
Oh
just
yeah.
shoves it in the middle of
Yes.
your city. It almost feels like that. It's just something just sticks out. Like all of the characters do actually.
That's that's a pretty good comparison
Yeah.
actually.
Like, I think the only one who doesn't stick out is maybe Omega, who's like a robot. But it's like,
Yeah.
you could shove him in any setting and they would still be cool. But the
Yeah,
rest of
yeah.
them are just like, oh, look, I'm a bobblehead. It's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, it's such a weird choice, and I think because, as with the story, I think they just ran out of time and just had to
Yeah.
push out what they had, which is such a shame. But I ultimately blame the blame on most on Sega,
Mhm.
because Sega rigidly was just like, no, we are not giving you any more time whatsoever. I think that did way more harm than if you had missed Sonic's anniversary.
Oh god. No, this game definitely needed more time in the oven. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it would have solved all the problems, but I feel as
Mhm.
if it would have solved maybe a little bit of them.
Well, that's the funny thing. You don't do that kind of work because you think it'll be a bestseller if you just put in a little more time. You do it for damage control.
Yeah.
Like you can write it off as, "Hey, we tried something and it didn't work, but don't worry, this isn't the way forward." But since they did just push ahead with this horrible thing, people, turn to Sonic isn't good and we are not interested anymore. And that does way more damage.
Because, I mean, even with things like Big the Cat, God bless his soul, and, because Shadow the Hedgehog did not do that well. I think it still sold, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really well received by people, I remember. Like,
Yeah, it
and
was
I think.
not.
I think it was a very like solidly mixed reception. Like some people loved
Yes.
it, some people hated it, other people just didn't know why Shadow the
Yeah.
Hedgehog had an M16. It was like driving down
Yeah.
in a motorcycle. Like nobody knew what to think of it. So
Yeah.
already, like the fans had kind of a sour taste in their mouth. And
Yes.
then, yeah, like when this game came out, I think I just killed any good faith that they had. Like just
Yeah. It's,
completely.
it's kind of what I meant earlier by
Yeah.
like Shadow was kind of like the crack in the armor, and then this was like the final blow to it. Because if people had just been like, yeah, this game's okay, whatever, and then moved on, you could have still kept that reputation of like Sonic are good games and something you should be interested in. But with that like 1-2 punch of Shadow than '06, people go, well, this isn't worth, looking into anymore. I just, I think Sega is the most at fault for not trying to, proactively control the damage there.
It's not even a case of like it's an indie studio because at this point, what it was like was it the 15th anniversary for this
Yes,
one?
15th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15th. So it's 15 years of Sonic, so they clearly know, they've got a good couple of games under the belt at this point. They know
Yes.
Adventure has done well, so I think they were definitely, like, this is speculation, but it does seem like they were taking a lot of beats from the Adventure games.
Yeah. I
Like,
think what they did was just look at what worked and, something they could quickly use. Because again, time constraints.
but I mean, some of the choices they made in this were baffling. Like, going back
Yes.
to the story quickly, like, as I said, Sonic's story is very linear. At the very
Hmm.
beginning, like, I will admit, the opening scene for this game is really well done. It's like a festival that these
Yes.
people on this island, or not island, well, is it an island?
I
Place.
mean, yeah.
In Venice, whatever Venice is, that's what this
Yeah.
is. So yeah, so meanwhile in Sonic's version of Venice, they go to, or there's this festival going on which is supposed to like pay homage to like, or pay honor to like this, basically this fire spirit that's a bit of a dick that will kill them if they don't give him fire.
Yes.
And then 2 seconds later, Eggman comes in with what my chat at the time when I was playing this referred to as bipples. He's literally
yes.
got, like, Dr. Eggman for some reason undergoes like the quote unquote the realistic treatment where
Yes.
he's got a very realistic face and you can see his eyes, which I do not like at all. But it's but then he's got like 4 massive like gold buttons like his jacket. But if you ever want to see what a man looks like with bi nipples, just play Sonic 06. That's
it'll give you nightmares.
It really will. And that's the thing though, because he's like quite portly, but he's got like the thin legs. It's just it's a weird design. It's like an alien trying to design a human. It's like, here we go.
Well, I always thought that at least like his face and like head area, to me he always looked like one of those kind of like stereotypical movie critic types.
Yeah.
You know? I always thought that was such a weird choice for Eggman. He kind of looks like I could see him sipping coffee, rejecting the latest script proposal or something like that. It did not strike me as Eggman.
Do you know what it reminds me? See, when you said that, like, it looks fine from, like, the shoulders up, it's like the biggest catfish in the world, doesn't it?
It really is.
It's like, such a weird he puts that in his profile, he's like, just looking to mingle, and then he ends up, like, I don't know, bombing your holiday destination with all these robots. It's like, what the hell? And that's how the game started. It's like, it's very bombastic, it's very over the top, in a good way. And you get to see Sonic very, like, quite cheeky, I suppose, like, full of life. And honest to God, like, savour that moment. Like, for anyone who hasn't played this game, savour that moment, because you're never going to get that till the very end of the game where Sonic emotes, because the rest of it's just like a dead-eyed Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic. Because the rest of it, he's just like, oh no, the princess has gone. Beep up. It's like, Sonic, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Come on.
Like, you could definitely tell they were trying to make some big, dramatic storyline, and especially because, like, hey, Adventure 2, it had a pretty edgy storyline, so like let's just amp that up.
But the other thing as well, which they never address, like, throughout the whole game, and maybe that was because they ran out of time, was Elise looks up at Sonic, and for a brief moment Sonic turns into not Shadow, Silver.
Yes.
She says something like, oh, it can't be. Oh no, wait, they do later on. Maybe I'm wrong there. Like, when they go back in time, I've only just clicked that. I'm like, did they address that? See, this is what happens with the game, because it introduces time travel much later on, and it's like, it just messes with the whole game, and you're like, if that goes back in time, then that can't happen for this game, and it's like, I don't want to play this anymore.
It's so difficult to follow the story, because it's like, wait, so we're in the past, but we're working towards, like, getting out of the future or something. It's such a nightmare to have to, like, figure out what's going on.
Because, as I said, like, the tone of this game is, and did you feel this way as well, that the tone of the game is just all over the place?
It is, absolutely. I like, there are times where I see they're trying to do some, like, edgy dramatic thing, and then there are other times where they want to be the fast, haha, fun times Sonic, and it just doesn't mesh well.
Because this is the same game, I'm not being dramatic here, I'm not kidding you guys who haven't played the game. There is literally a scene where a cartoon hedgehog debates the morality about taking another life. It is the most jarring thing I think I've ever seen in a video. So basically, like, I mean, we'll save, like, Shadow's story for last, or second last, but oh my god, like, Silver, like, gets duped into going back to the past to stop what is referred to by this random hedgehog. Like, this random hedgehog goes up to him and he's like, hey kid, you wanna stop this bad future? And it's like, all we need is a van that says, like, free Chaos Emeralds, or, something like that at the side of it, and it's like, oh, there's nothing suspicious here. So he sends him back in time, And he's like, oh yeah, you have to kill this guy because I showed you like a gif of him standing in front of a fire. And he's
Yes, yeah.
like, oh, of course. So throughout the game, he tries to kill Sonic off. And then there's a scene when he gets stopped by Sonic's love interest, well, not the love interest, Amy Rose, in it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's sitting by the beach. And although the music is great in this, I will admit the music is great, but he's sitting like at this port, and his friend Blaze comes over, and she's like, oh, what's up? And he's like, is it right to take another life? For a good cause? And you're like, I'm looking at my thing and I'm like, did I put in my copy of Heavy Rain into my PlayStation? I'm like, no, okay, no, this is still Sonic. Okay, right, good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got no idea what this game is.
Yeah, it's so funny too because there are a lot of story elements that like aren't elaborated on. And again, I think because of time constraints, like they sometimes refer to the scepter as like a book, and it's clear that like they were trying to work on it in like pieces, and they just didn't have the time to sit down and like work it all out.
Have you heard of the outtake that they left in the game?
Yeah. Oh yes, I listened to it myself when I streamed it.
Oh, it is brilliant. There's a outtake. There's actually a voice line that they left in the game where the voice actor like flubs his line, and he's saying something to Shadow. It's like, Agent Shadow, they're going to the blah blah blah. Agent Shadow, and it just starts again and like carries on.
I think it was Wave Ocean, right?
Yeah,
where he goes like, head to Wave Ocean. What Wave Ocean? Head to Wave Ocean immediately, and
you're like, come on. Come on,
Yeah.
this is Sega. I don't want to be like, oh, Sega do better, but this is a relatively big company that has like so many years of experience. There was no excuse, even with time constraints. Like there was no excuse that that kind of thing got by. Like I can understand the rest of it. Like there's a lot in this game you think, there's no time to fix that. Like with the love story with Sonic, the philosophy with. with Silver, and I mean Shadow's story as well. Shadow's story, I would say, is probably the strongest. That's not saying a lot, but like
it's I'd say it's the strongest.
Yeah, because it deals with more, and I can't believe I know I'm saying this about a Sonic game, but it deals with more complex ideas, like the idea of like sacrifice and like scapegoating things. Although it's a really weird thing because they just bring it out of nowhere and they're like, oh, because Shadow meets the same person, Mephiles, who is like the secondary big bad in this game, who you don't really meet him in Sonic's story, but you meet him in Shadow and Silver's. You find out like he's half of like this horrible like deity or something. See, this is the thing. It's like it honestly is like a Final Fantasy game. It's like it's like a cross between Final Fantasy X Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's like someone writing this up saying, and then Shadow and Silver go to the past and they see this deity called Solaris, but it actually splits in two, and Mephiles can actually change into into Shadow. And the other one's a giant fire lizard called Iblis, and then Sonic gets the girl and kisses her, and you're like, what is this? What? It's
and we could spend hours just dissecting how much that story is just like a weird fan fiction that it feels like one of those kids who's like really energetic, like he ate too many pixie sticks and he's just writing what comes to mind.
And I mean, considering the amount of people who used to make, I mean they still do, but considering the people who make like the Sonic OCs, and they make like these like really grand backstories about being half demon, half whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think that one of them was a Sega employee and somehow got like some of his script in there. Even an influence to be like, do you know what would be cool? A lizard that shoots fire. And it's like, it's like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. And he just puts it in.
I don't know if you've ever seen the like Sonic shorts. Animated. There's one where it's like making an OC, and it's the guy giving advice, and he's like, "This guy was made in Eggman's super secret volcano underwater lair in space." That's how it goes sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Like, some of the designs are cool, but oh my god, it's just, it's a game I think that definitely goes on for far too long.
Oh yeah,
Like
definitely.
even with like Shadow Story, like oh god, there's just so much. It's like basically the whole plot of Shadow is a Linkin Park character. He is indeed crawling in his skin because his wounds from the last game will not heal. Neither will his like not box office, but you know what I mean. Neither will his sales because my God, it's just depressing. It's like, oh yeah, in the future, no one's going to care about you. And it's like, oh no, but we'll care about you.
Yeah.
The bat, the bat, and the robot. And it's like, don't get me wrong, still, they're definitely three of the best characters in this game. Sonic is
Yes.
just a plank of wood. Like, did you think that? Like after the cutscene at the beginning, did you think Sonic actually held his own in this game compared to the last ones?
Yeah, definitely not. He basically, I mean, a plank of wood is pretty accurate. He basically just goes wherever and wherever people tell him to, like, hey Sonic, you need to go here and do this, and you just go there. Not an ounce of personality.
Because I think this is one of the first games where they got the new voice cast in. So he was played
Yes.
by Richard Griffin, was it? Or Griffins?
Um,
No,
y-
Richard
uh,
Jason Griffin. Sorry, I don't know why I said Richard.
yeah, yeah.
Why am I thinking of Richard?
Yeah, Jason
Jason
Griffith.
Griffith. I'm going to be honest. I think his shadow's really good. I really
Yes.
think his shadow's really good, but I think his Sonic's awful. I'm sorry. Like,
I don't think it's
oh, not
awful, but
awful, but
it's not ideal.
like it got better. Okay, I'll say it this way. I think it got better, but at the very beginning, it was not
Yeah, it
great.
was kind of rough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially in
I
like Sonic
Mhm.
Riders. That was.
Oh yeah.
I think
Oof.
that's the first time I think I've ever cringed at a game and gone, "Oh no!" I'm just like, oh no. But
Can
Sonic,
I be honest?
yeah,
I still think he's way better than Roger Craig Smith is. I know that is a very hot take. I don't like Roger Craig Smith as Sonic. He really just sounds too like low pitched millennial. I'm just gonna quote memes
yeah.
24/7. I just can't stand him. So he announced that he was leaving, and I was like, oh, finally we can get a new Sonic. And then he announced he was coming back. And I was like, are you kidding me? And everyone was all excited, and I felt like I'm gonna look like the biggest, the
Yeah,
biggest, a hole
yeah.
for saying that I don't like him. But I just don't. I just don't think he sounds like Sonic. I don't think he acts like Sonic. I think the only worse voice for Sonic could have been what's his name from the movie, Ben Schwartz. I don't think Ben Schwartz is Sonic at all. I think Griffith did a decent job, but he's definitely better as Shadow
Yeah,
than as Sonic.
because
Definitely.
yeah, I'm gonna reverse the no card you here and say I definitely prefer Jason Griffith for Shadow than whoever the hell the new guy is. Because
Yes.
the new guy sounds like what I sounded like when I was like 12 years old, trying to quote Shadow to be like,
Yeah.
oh no, the Chaos Emeralds. It's like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that voice?
Yeah, it's like my friend will send me, like compilation clips of Sonic Boom because I don't like Sonic Boom the TV show either.
Yeah. Mhm.
And he sent me one where it's like all of Shadow's voice lines in Sonic Boom, and his voice is just so like it really sounds like they just got someone to be like, get out of my way, you freak. Like,
Yeah.
it just does not sound like Shadow at all.
It just sounds like a parody, doesn't it? It's just
It
like.
really does.
I can't believe we turned like ranting on Sonic 06 into a Roger Craig hate. The Shadow.
I'm sure Roger Craig Smith is a great guy, and I know he does other great
Oh,
roles.
yeah.
I just don't think he's Sonic.
Yeah. No, I get that. I totally get
Yeah,
that.
but for what it's worth, I did think the performances in '06 were at least semi decent.
Oh, yeah. No, that was.
Shadow in particular.
Oh yeah, definitely. Although he does have a very anime moment at the end where it's like he takes off his, which I did not know this was a thing until this game. So apparently Shadow has he has like rings around his wrists, which
Oh yes.
are called inhibitor rings. I did not know this was a thing. Like genuinely, I didn't know if it was brought up in the comics or
It's
a
actually
spin-off.
a Sonic X thing.
Oh, is it? Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, like Sonic X kind of, well, sort of. It kind of implied that, like, they basically said in Sonic X that Shadow's rings, like, hold back his powers or whatever, but it's not really that obvious. They don't make a huge thing out of it,
Yeah.
so it's easy to forget.
I know it's something I say a lot, but it's like you know that like meme where it's like, "Forgive me, Sensei, I must go all out." Just this once, and he takes off his rings
Yes.
and he just like rams into like the final boss, and then it cuts to black, and you're like, "Oh my god, you
Yeah.
just killed Tony Soprano." I mean, no, spoilers,
Yeah, yeah.
but Jesus, that was a really weird side tangent.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
you're
that's
fine.
basically like, yeah. So as I said, like Sonic's
Mhm.
story is basically focused on him saving the princess, which he does at the end after some hijinks and time travel and terrible, terrible gameplay,
Yeah.
which we
Yeah.
will get onto in a second.
Yeah,
We
I was
will.
actually gonna say
Oh
I do
yeah.
have things to bring up about the
Oh,
gameplay,
absolutely.
so
Oh
yeah.
no, we will get. So you have that. Shadow is, as I said, like trying to beat this new foe, Mephiles. Which Mephiles, I have to admit, was a cool character.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I
well,
mean,
well, cool enough. Like, he could have
yeah,
been,
yeah.
he could have been
He,
expanded upon.
he had potential, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah. He's just,
execution.
yeah, he is. He's just kind of like, "You're all going to die," ha 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 ha. And then he like
Yeah.
runs away with his mustache twirling, and you're like, "My God." Although I did like when he gets Robocopped by Omega. Like literally, there's a
Oh,
scene where
yes.
where Omega is like, so the robot is shooting him, you know, with a cannon over and over again. And I can't remember, but he's like, "Oh, the world will turn on you," and you know, he
Yeah.
rolls his arms back, and his arms transform into Gatling guns, and he just starts wasting them, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what is this? You know, this is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Robocop 2.0. It's like, Murphy, no.
Yeah.
And then,
I
sorry,
man.
no, go.
I also I wanted to say too, I love that Mephiles is voiced by Dan Green,
Oh, really?
who yeah,
Yeah.
he's voiced by Dan Green. And I love Dan Green, but I particularly knew him as Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh!
Is he not
And
Knuckles as well?
yeah, he is
And
also
that's it, yeah,
Knuckles, at least in Sonic X.
yeah,
It's so funny because you can hear his like deep voice on this character,
yeah.
and you think like he could be cool if he was like use it if they had written something better.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But
all very kind of generic. Like the writing in
yeah,
this as well. Like I was watching a video just to kind of recap
mhm,
on, you know, like what happens in the game, and there is
yes,
one particular scene where, like, someone pointed this out, and I totally agree with them. It's when Sonic gets sent to the future. Trust me, it makes sense in context. And he gets sent to the future, and he meets Shadow, and they're like chatting away with one another, and they're basically racing to, I don't know where it is, I think the centre of a volcano because they want the game to end. And,
yeah,
you know, Sonic like waves his big like sausage finger in his face and he says, "Don't be late." And Shadow, of course, reciprocates and he goes, "Same to you."
yes,
It sounds like something like a child would say in the playground, you know? It doesn't sound
oh yeah,
like, because if you look in Sonic like Adventure 2, for example,
hmm,
when they've got the banter, although granted the audio mixing was terrible for that, you know.
yes,
I
yeah,
mean, you brought it up in your stream the other day of you're comparing yourself to me.
to me,
Ha!
ha,
You're not even good enough to be my. I'm like you with those words. It's like,
yeah,
oh, and it overlaps and everything. But at least
yeah,
like that's memorable. Whereas
oh
that's
certainly,
like, can you imagine buying a Sonic the Hedgehog T-shirt and it just says "Don't be late, same to you." You know, no kid is gonna buy that.
oh
No,
certainly not. It really reads like they couldn't think of anything better. Just like, hey, don't be late, and then they're like, oh, what should you say? I don't know, same to you, whatever. Like, it
yeah.
just really felt like they had nothing for him,
Do you think
you
Shadow
know?
just went home that day and was just like, "Damn it! It's like I could have came up with a better line. Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
my
he's in the
line."
shower.
It's like,
Yeah, he's in like the shower and he's thinking like, oh, if I had just said this, that would have been so much better.
so at the very end, and like the most inappropriate moment, he's like, "Hey, that's my line." Oh, he's dead. Oh no, he's not breathing. So yeah,
Sure.
that's what happens in Shadow's story.
Yeah.
Silver travels back in time, defeats Frieza,
Hmm.
tries to kill, you know, Sonic, doesn't work, then ends up seeing the error of his ways. His
Yeah.
friend gets like obliterated because,
Yep.
and I quote, so they tried to seal Iblis in like the Chaos Emeralds, like, you know, for anyone who doesn't
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
the magical gems that are in
Yes.
this game. It doesn't work for some reason. So Blaze is like, oh, I'm royal blood, I'll do it. And I remember sitting there for the first time being like, you have barely spoken several words in this game. And the words you have spoke amount to, I don't know if you should kill someone. That blue hedgehog. And my personal favourite, oh, look at Wave Ocean. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
like there's been
Man.
no like character building for her in this game. And then at the end, she's like, oh, I'm royalty. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I want the game to end. I'll take it. Just seal her away.
Yeah. Well, see, the funny thing, when I was saying earlier how like nobody really goes over the fact that Blaze was just totally ripped out from Rush for this. I think Blaze was actually kind of an interesting character in Rush. So to have that ripped away only to be replaced with that, like, it made me so mad back in the day.
And it's such a shame, though, because, I mean, with Blaze and Silver as well, like, they're interesting characters, but it's just a shame that this is their debut game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm kind of glad that they got, like, reintroduced into the canon.
Yeah, with Generations.
Yeah. Oh, what was the other one? Forces. Which, although it wasn't
yes.
the best game, at least they brought him back. Which I thought, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Not like brushing him under the carpet or anything. I don't know how he's there or why, you know?
Yeah, he just is.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah.
I thought you died. Nope. He's just there. It's like, okay, fair dues. Which, of course, leads us on to the last story.
Yes.
Where this is the only game that I can think of off the top of my head where Sonic actually dies. I think the closest we came to for that kind of thing was Adventure 2, where Sonic nearly gets blown up and Shadow kind of falls to his death, but not really. Well, that's the twist.
Like he uses Chaos Control with the fake emerald to get out of the exploding pod. Yeah. I think that's the closest I'm comfortable with in terms of
like
killing off Sonic.
Yeah, whereas in this game, they actually kill him off. Yeah, he's walking in a field with his quote-unquote girlfriend, and Mephiles comes out of nowhere and is just like, I'ma stab you, and he stabs him in the back.
Yep.
And I was laughing because I actually think, and I could be wrong here, but see, do you remember the Sonic Direct they just had there for the 30th?
Yes, the Central, yeah.
Yeah, you remember how they had, like, different scenes in the background?
Yes,
from the different games? I am pretty sure that one of the scenes they chose, like, especially from Sonic 06, you think they would just brush that under the carpet, but one of the scenes they chose was Sonic getting impaled by Mephiles. And it's like, of all the scenes, why would you choose that?
What? You know, I need to go back and watch that. I need to see if that's really the case.
Yeah, like maybe it was a Photoshop, I don't know, but if it wasn't, that is hilarious. Because it's
that is hilarious.
It's one of the worst. And yeah, because of that, and this is a plot point that we actually haven't touched on, is the fact that the fire lizard, which destroyed Silver's like timeline, is trapped inside Elise, who, if she cries, and they never define this, it's a bit like the Furby, the Gremlins, that's it. The Gremlin, like, paradox, where they say you can't feed them after midnight, and it's like, well, what constitutes as, like, past midnight and everything? It's like that. It's what constitutes, what if she stubs her toe? What if she cuts herself? You know, like, what if she blinks? What if she gets, like, dust in her eye? Does that count? You know, like, they never say, like, oh, if you feel strong emotions, you know, like, it is nothing like, they literally say, like, word for word, they say, don't cry, Elise. And, you know, it's like, that's all they say. That's all they're giving us. That is the bone on the on the end of another, like, ravish bone. Like, there's nothing there.
It's so... It feels like so many things were just arbitrarily decided on, you know. We're gonna have Elise, you know, we're gonna have this plot point where Elise can't cry, but we're not really gonna give it any time or any other supporting context. It's just, here you go.
Here, one death, please. Thank you. She just, like,
Also, I wanted to say too, since you brought up Sonic Central, the Sonic Symphony that they did on like the 28th or whatever. So they were doing all the medleys of the different games. When they did each game, they would have like gameplay in the, you know, in like a projector in the background. And it was always funny to me because they would do, you know, Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and, you know, they move throughout the ages and they're showing all the gameplay. And then they get to 06 and it's almost purely like the story cutscenes,
Oh,
and there's one shot where they are just standing in Soliana, and the camera kind of like pans around it, and I was like, wow, they they were so not confident in showing anything from this game that they focus solely on the cutscenes and the characters standing still.
that's amazing. And I mean,
Yeah,
considering like it's like it's that bad that they even retconned the game at the very end, where it's
yeah.
like once you defeat, like, yeah, spoiler, Sonic doesn't actually die, but it's like well, he does die, but he doesn't. He gets brought back to life by a magical kiss or something.
Yeah, like
Or
they all like channel their power into
it's the power
the
of
kiss. I
love.
don't. I,
I can't even remember who sang that. But it's like
yeah.
it's the power of love that essentially brings him back, and
Yes.
like many people have ranted on this, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the weird cast and things, and people actually say that they're like, oh, it should have been like I don't know, some random
Amy.
animal, yeah, or even Amy. But
Yeah.
the more I think about it, the more I think, like, do you think that would have made any difference?
Well, I don't know. It would have made some difference
Oh
because,
yeah,
at least to me, it's like the image of a human girl kissing Sonic
oh
was
yeah,
so spread around and so reviled that I think if it was switched to Amy,
yeah.
like so much of that, awareness would have been gone. So at least in that sense, it would have made a difference. Story wise, I mean,
Oh yeah,
it
because I
doesn't
feel as
matter.
if like that's the main scene that
Yes.
everybody rants on
Oh yeah.
for good reason. Like I'm not going to be, I am not going to
Certainly.
die on
Yeah.
that hill. Like I'll leave someone else to die on that hill, but it is not
Yeah.
going to be me. There's just a lot of weird decisions, and it definitely would have like. Maybe a rewrite in some cases or some bits would have been beneficial, but because I'm not saying like they're trying to write the next like Citizen Kane or anything, which I know is like a thing I always bring up, but it's like
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
trying to like make like the next Shakespeare or anything, but at the same time it's like make a cohesive story, please.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm begging you, Sega, please.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's the thing about Sonic writing. It's like it doesn't have to be some high literary ambition type thing. It just you just need like Saturday morning cartoon level writing. It's not that difficult.
But I mean, you get such a combination throughout the story. You get people who are like, like Sonic being cheeky and like,
Yeah.
tapping the robot, with his toe, going
Yes.
ding,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it, he falls off, and he's like smiling and everything, and that's where it ends. And as I said, you get the
Yeah.
animatronic Sonic to replace
Mm-hmm.
him, and you're like, oh god, this is going to be one of those games. And
Yep, yep.
I mean, you go from like is it like fun, oh let's run through the ocean, to oh no, Eggman's gonna bomb a city of like civilians unless the princess comes out, which is actually a scene.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the third time Elise gets kidnapped, and it is.
Yes.
Elise also gets killed. She gets blown up with Eggman, which
Yeah.
which again is another unintentionally hilarious scene with Jason Griffiths yelling Elise at the top of
Yep,
his
yep.
voice. But he doesn't say it like, like someone's lost their, true love. He goes, Elise! And then he slams his massive meat fist into the ground, and you think, this game is. It's like, this
Yeah.
is bad, no.
Oh man. Yeah. Disaster.
But speaking of a disaster, I know we've
Hmm.
been holding off on this, but will we
Yeah.
go on to the gameplay? Because
Yes.
oh,
I've
yeah.
got I've got some things to say
Yep,
about the
I'm, I'm,
gameplay.
I'm gonna let you lead on because I've ranted
Yeah.
about the story, so go, go for it.
No, you're fine. As I've said before, I didn't play '06 when it launched outside of that multiplayer with my friend, and I had seen enough. I had basically seen everything about the game by the time I did end up playing it because I played it on stream. I think the one thing that I never really fully grasped about the gameplay, I I've never gotten lost in a Sonic stage before, but this game, it's like I could be going around in circles and not realize it, and so many different like, is that the way I'm supposed to do it? Like, should I have done something else? So many moments like that. I don't think like watching videos does that justice, because if somebody knows where they're going, it doesn't look that bad. But if you don't know where you're going, like especially I remember a level where it's like Mayan ruin style, and
Yeah.
you have to like swing between vines, and there's like water all around that'll kill you. And I remembered getting so lost in that stage because everything looked the same and it felt like every path kind of just led in a circle. And I forget exactly how I got out. I think I like took one specific path that would take me to the end,
Yeah.
but I never really realized it when watching the videos, but I was like, this game is so confusingly laid out. Like, these levels don't feel like levels, they just kind of feel like environments you walk through, which I know sounds like a no duh kind of statement, but it just really doesn't feel like they considered, trying to tell the player where to go.
Because I'm just thinking, and I know I keep making like examples of or like comparisons between this and Sonic Adventure, but if you compare
Yeah,
like the
well,
Sonic Adventure hub worlds, like see when you're a kid, don't get me wrong, it's like they're massive and you can get lost in them, but
yeah.
like when you play them later on, I mean, with the exception of the forest, that's just horrible.
Oh yeah, the
But
forest is awful.
yeah, we don't talk about Mystic Ruins Forest. We don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Just moving on. Um,
Yeah.
but like, with the exception of that, like the majority of them are more or less like you can kind of tell, what's what. It's like all laid out, and even if you do get lost, there's like hints. And I mean, you
Yeah.
can technically talk to the townspeople, but who's going
I
to
mean,
talk? Oh,
yeah, I was about to say, who's gonna want to talk to any of the NPCs in this game?
yeah, you've got
Having seen
like.
the cutscene writing.
And can I just say the first, like, you get the opening, as I said, you've got the opening in this game that's very bombastic, over the top. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And then you start with a side mission in this
Yes,
game. You don't even start with, like, you're in Wave Ocean, you're in,
right.
like, because I remember with Adventure, so going back to the Adventure example, Adventure 1, you start off fighting Chaos, and then the second like bit you go to a cutscene and then immediately it guides you towards the beach where you go for your
Yes.
first level. So it sets the tone, it sets up the main
Yep.
villain, it does really well. For Adventure 2, you're basically thrusted, like you're thrown off of a moving helicopter and
Yep.
you slide down, not San Francisco, and everything. And then you get chased by a giant truck. It's like, it's all, cylinders firing. For this game,
Yes.
they show you a cutscene. And then, like, and people have made this comparison, but it's so true. It's like Superman 64, I think
Yep.
was a game, where
Yep.
you have to run through hoops, and that's
Yep.
it. You have to run through hoops to earn money to use the Lightspeed Dash, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, to get to Wave Ocean.
Yeah, it
It,
is. And do you know what the worst part of that is? Which
hmm.
I honestly have nightmares thinking about it. So, like as I was saying before, the levels for me personally, I feel as if they're too long. Would you
Yeah,
say?
they are
Like
pretty long.
they could take you about half an hour to 45 minutes sometimes. Not all of them. Like some of them will
Yeah,
be about 15 to 20, but that's still far too
I
long.
mean, yeah, that's still a lot. Like,
Like,
considering the classics had like a 10-minute time limit.
yeah.
You know.
Like there's one particular one in Silver Stage where I think you have to spend like a good 15 to 20 minutes pushing like this ball to try and get it into like this hole, but
Oh.
yeah, it is.
Oh, I blocked that out of my memory. I don't want to
It is
relive this.
infamous because every time you hit it, it's got a counter on it,
Yep.
and you have to like curve it round to,
Yes.
and you have to avoid other holes for it to
Yeah.
fall down. But if you take too much time, like lining up your shot, the counter actually goes down, and
Yes.
you've only got 9 like hits on it, and then after 9
Yeah.
hits, that's it. And Silver runs like he's running in treacle, so that doesn't
Yeah.
help. So it's like horrible things like that.
Yeah, it's funny because like when I was playing through them, I mean it was basically like golf, mini golf.
Yeah.
And I think that was the like most angry I ever got at like the stages. I certainly got angry at stages, but having to do the silver ones over and over because I couldn't find any way to like guide in the amount of hits that they asked. And it also didn't help that sometimes it would like double hit, so
Yeah.
I would lose. I would lose even more hits. Oh, I was so frustrated by that. I blocked that out of my memory because I got so upset.
Oh, I can understand.
Oh,
Yeah, that is a
yeah.
horrible. That's probably the longest one. But I was thinking the
Yes.
reason I brought it up was because imagine you're a child. Like I know you and I have played this, but it's like imagine you're a child playing this, right? And
Yep.
Sonic's level is most of his levels are basically split into two parts. They're split into a normal one, and then
Yes.
they're split into like a max speed section.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was gonna bring those up.
Which,
Oof.
yeah, which, long story short, they're essentially just like, they're like what the boost formula in the new games would have been if you
Yeah.
couldn't control it. It's like you're constantly going like really fast. You cannot control it. You cannot like guide. You can guide yourself, but it's very temperamental and tricky.
Yes. Oh,
So
well, yeah.
nobody really, as far as I remember, like no one really expected that. Like I think it was advertised, but no one expected how bad it was going to be. So you spent
Oh,
about
certainly.
like 10, 15 minutes in the first part of the game actually getting through Wave Ocean. Maybe less, maybe I'm being too harsh in the first level, but you spend a considerable amount of time. You get to the max speed section, let's say you're taken off guard, so you keep getting killed, because if you hit something, you still keep going. It's not like you can slow down, you can't like change your velocity, you can't do anything like that. Like that would make sense. And there's also some bits where even if you're running round a hoop, or like a spiral correctly, if you go in the wrong trajectory, you go flying off. Like you can't guide yourself. It is absolutely horrible. And the reason I bring that up is just because imagine you go through that and you die, and you think, well, no problem. You know, it's a bit of a pain, but I guess I'll have to start Wave Ocean again. Oh no. Oh no. You don't start off at Wave Ocean. You start off at the very beginning of the game, because the way the saves work, I think it automatically, like you have to manually save it, but I think it automatically saves after every like level that's done. Oh, it's awful. So it's like so you have to go through the intro, you have to do the rings again, you have to do the light speed. Sorry, that was my rant.
No, it's fine. The save system is definitely a big criticism too. They did not think that through at all. I was gonna say about those, I think they were called like mock speed sections.
Yeah.
For how poorly implemented they are, they were. I do think they have potential, and especially having been through games like Unleashed and Generations now, where boost formula, kind of works.
Yeah.
I think those sections could have been actually pretty fun, but they would have needed to adjust a bunch of things to get it to that point, and. I got really frustrated at the one in Crisis City.
Oh yeah.
Where that one is a nightmare. What I realized really made it awful was like once you get hit, you lose control. Like they make you go through that whole animation of Sonic, spinning out, but they still move you forward because you're still moving at like that speed. So if you get hit on an obstacle and you are on a certain trajectory, you're not able to like correct yourself in time to get hit again, and by then you're likely flying off the stage. Little things like that, like having more air control and not taking control away from the player when you get hit, like I think could have made those sections decent. They just made it the way it is.
I think the worst part about the Crisis City one is the fact that the level itself is already split up into like two parts, I think, before the max speed section. Like you have to go through the city, which is like a chore and a half in itself, and then you have to go through another part of it, like in a tornado where you make sure you don't fall off, and then
the tornado's carrying a car.
Oh yeah, exactly. That tornado's carrying a car, and you're like, Sonic, shut off, please. Just turn yourself off. Just
this is the 5th time I've heard this.
Oh, and then you get to the max speed section, and they not only do they throw everything at you, like there's pipes on the road, there are boxes, like some kind of weird 80s action film. There's holes at the side of the road, which I did fall through, like the barriers aren't there. And do you know what they do, which really, like, this is the icing on top of the cake, is when they shift the camera. So you're, like, holding, like, left and right, and then it flips, so, like, you're pulling Sonic to, like, a way that you don't want to go. You're like, oh, no. So, like, if you know the level, like, you can, I wouldn't say easily avoid it. I'm not going to say that at all, but, you know what's going on, or what's going to happen. But for first-time players, can you imagine having, like, one life there, and then having to do all of that again? And
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, I had to redo that when I streamed the games because I kept dying to that section, and especially I remembered a section where it did that camera flip, and it does so suddenly and puts you in immediate danger, so like you don't have time to get adjusted to it. I remembered a scene where it did that flip, and I was already kind of on the edge of the road, and then it did the flip, and I veered off just because I was trying to get more center.
Yeah.
I was running forward, and I went, okay, I need to get away from the edge. Let me hold right to get some more center, but then it flipped, and it made me veer right off the side, and I was so mad.
Oh, I can imagine. I honestly.
Yeah.
Because I've done that. It honestly does. It makes you sweaty when you're just like, oh my god, I've got no lives left. I've got to get through this, otherwise I have to play like 15 to 20 minutes of this game again, and you're like, I don't want to do this. Please don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. Please don't make
and when you jump, it keeps all your momentum, so you have no control. Like if you make a slightly angled jump, you're heading pretty far to that angle.
Oh yeah,
so like I jumped off the map so many times.
And if you get trapped under anything, that's it. Because there's one later on where you have to run after a train, which is one of the most ridiculous levels. The reason I say this is because like you have to run between, like there's a bit where you have to run down this hill, but then there's like a gap in between, so you jump across. But as you said, because you jump across, like the momentum still carries you. There's like trains going across at the same time, and you're guaranteed, because the jumping's terrible, you're guaranteed to hit one of them, like going across, whether it be like one of the carriages, and you just phase through it, and you're like, oh, this is just murder, because you can't like hop between them in any graceful way. You have to just like jump, and you're like, I must go. My hedgehogs need me. Kind of thing. You're like, bye, Sonic. And then when you get to the end of that, oh god, I think I posted like a clip of this before, but have I shown you that where I got to the end of it, and basically for most of the max speed sections you hit like the goal ring, and that's it, the level ends, and it does the animation, it does the do 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 do, and that's it. Perfectly fine. Lovely rendition there.
Yes.
Sega, phone me up for the next symphony.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But for this one, it's like if you don't hit the pads, because the ring suddenly appears above, I think, the train. But if you miss it, or like you hit the train, you do like the spinning out motion. So it's like you jump into it, and it's just like, oh, and I thought, oh god, I've completely messed this up. And then 2 seconds later, it comes up with the animation of do 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 do.
Oh yeah,
and you're like, no way. There is no way you've ended a level by me face planting in front of a train. Like there is no way, and it does. You're just like,
yep.
You know what, I'll take it. Move me on to the next level.
Also, not quite for the Mach speed sections, but what I always found baffling too about '06 was that they made a pretty big emphasis on like drivable vehicles.
Oh, Jesus.
And I don't know why Sega would have thought that, because everyone hated those sections in Shadow, where you have to like drive a car or drive a whatever. And so like there's like the hover car that you have to drive when you're Shadow, or just the bike that you have to drive. It's a nightmare. And who at Sega said like, well, this went so well the first time, we need to do it the second time?
Oh, they're terrible. They're absolutely horrific to drive.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying this as like when you get those video game critics that like say, oh, this game handles horribly, ha ha ha. No, genuinely. Right. I would swear on somebody's life that genuinely this is one of the worst. Like I remember playing so when I did like my 6-hour stream, I think I'd finished Sonic's story in about 5 hours maybe, or just over that. So I was like, okay, I'll do a bit of Shadows, just to fill out the time. So I started Shadow's story, and I think I got to I think it was Kingdom Valley that I got to.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a particular scene where you have to drive the hover car, or the hover, whatever it is. And you have to drive it over the water. For some reason, some sadist at Sega was like, do you know what would make this harder? See if we had boxes bobbing up and down, but they don't bob up and down. They're programmed as if they're like, they just pop out of nowhere and then dive back down again, and you're like, you absolute dicks. Because they pop up and they like clip you, so you roll over and you end up going through. Or, oh god, there was another one I had where like I was driving through, and what they also did was they crumble like these towers above you.
Yes.
And if you get even clipped, or if a rock looks at you the wrong way, that's it. It crumbles on you. You die immediately. You have to do it again. And I was like, oh, this is horrific.
I was going to make mention of how the hover car. What is particularly frustrating is that it's so lightweight and it gets flung around a lot. But you have to keep level with the water, otherwise you just no clip through the water and die.
And the sand as well.
Yeah.
It does not discriminate.
Yeah,
sand.
no, you just no clip. That's
and this is the thing though, because they don't, like, in the nicest way possible, they do not give you an option not to use them. Like, because Shadow doesn't run as fast, it's like you can't catch up with the train in Radical. Is it Radical Train?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Radical whatever. Yeah, Radical level.
Yeah.
Like, you have to use the motorbike, which handles terribly. There's actually a side mission I absolutely love. I think it's just the dumbest thing ever. You talk to a SWAT guy from GUN, which is like the government organisation, and they're like, Agent Shadow. I'm laughing just thinking about it, because it's like, Agent Shadow, we found these, like, rogues who have stolen something. It's like, can you drive after them? And they say it in this place that, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I genuinely don't think this is ever in the game again. Like, this location, you have to drive down the highway and shoot at cars. And it's like,
really?
It's like, I can't even remember what bit of the game it's in. I'll need to send you, like, because I think I've got it in my compilation video, but it's like, there's definitely a scene where it's like, the gun agent is just like, Agent Shadow, we have to stop these robbers, or I don't even know. They have to stop someone. So you drive down this like highway and you shoot rockets at these cars to blow them up. And it's literally the only like point of that game where they have something like that. And you're like, okay, someone at Sega just went, you know what? I'm all in. Let's somehow sneak this into the game. I'm sure no one will play it. And then years later, like someone does play it, and you're like, this is ridiculous, because nothing's like that textured. It looks like you were saying earlier, like Sonic looks like a Gmod model, like plopped in. This honestly feels like one of those like either custom Gmod ones, or the custom like GTA mods, and they just have like a track above the city. That's what it feels like, because it's I don't know where it is, because it's like, oh, it's the road leading out to Soliana. It's like, where? It's half water, half city. Or half forest. It's like, this is ridiculous.
I don't think I've ever done that side quest. You'll have to send it to me, because I don't think I can remember that.
I will be. Just to prove it, to be like, yes, this actually did exist. I'm not going mad. And everyone's like, that's nice, Satsu. That's nice. It's like, go take a seat in the corner. It's like, I swear it did happen. It's just as jarring. But then you get other characters who like are just the weirdest. There was a guy who I pointed out in my stream. I don't know if you saw him. He was like the station attendant, and he's got the biggest hat in the world. Like, it's the one.
It rings a bell.
It's the one where you have to get into the. It's the Sonic version of chasing the train, but you have to get past the guy.
Okay. I think I remember this.
But you have to get like the bounce bracelet and everything. But there's a guy who stops you, and he does the hey, which is what everyone says. They do the hey.
Hey.
And he's got this massive hat, and I think I've actually got that in my channel trailer. At least the point of recording this, I do. And it's literally how it starts. It's just me going, oh my god. It's just like, look at that. Because I did promo. I was like, if I could get the cosplay of that, I totally would. I'm not even that into cosplay, but see, if I could find that hat, I would go all in. I would just be like, you know what? Glorious, glorious hat. It reminds me of. Do you remember the Fair? Oh God, is it the Fairly Odd Parents that has the guy with the big hat, or is that
Oh,
something
Doug
else?
Dimmadome?
Doug Emmett, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's
That
a
is
bit
really
like
odd.
yeah, it's like I mean it's not the same style of hat, but it's like as tall as it is. It's like oh my god, this is just insane. But anyway, sorry, hats aside. I mean, there's also
Yeah.
Sonic Man, which did you ever
Yeah,
encounter
Sonic
him?
Man is he's such a weird
Yeah,
weird concept. I
it's
did do a couple of the races
yeah.
for him. It's just so bizarre.
Uh-huh.
It like feels like a joke, but then it doesn't seem like it is. I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it.
Like you don't know
I
whether
can't.
it's a joke or mean spirited to be like,
Yeah,
this is what we think
it
of you. It's like oh
yeah. Well, it's like it's a man who dresses exactly like Sonic, or tries to like dress up as Sonic and be like, "Hey, I can outrace you," but he's not like that challenging.
yeah.
So it feels like they're trying to make a joke about how like yeah, people try and imitate Sonic, but they're not actually Sonic. But then like they have him in enough areas and like enough of the side quests that it feels like it's like a genuine thing they're trying to push. So I never understood if he was meant to be like a comedic thing or if they were trying to make him serious.
Yeah. I mean that and he does the Naruto run.
Yeah,
Like he
that too.
has
Exactly.
he has the arms behind his back. And
Yeah.
it's like this is weird. This is
Yeah,
really
very,
because he's
very
also
weird.
got like this is a weird thing. He's got a t-shirt on that's like of Sonic, but it's like the symbol from Sonic, like the very first Sonic game.
Yes, yeah.
Like kind of on his t-shirt, and he's like, "I'm
Yeah.
Sonic Man. You're just a
Yeah.
poser." And I'm looking at Sonic, and I know like the joke's been made, but you look at Sonic, you look at him, and you think, on the one hand, how stupid can you be? But on the other hand, yeah, the first time I saw that Sonic, like I, yeah, I would say the same. You're not Sonic.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people
exactly.
said that. I mean, speaking of Sonic as well, there's also the gem system, which was never properly implemented.
Yeah,
Like, oh, like,
I like it really does feel like an RPG in certain ways where it's like, oh, if I can buy upgrades and get new powers and stuff, but ultimately just ends up being kind of a get this to progress forward.
'cause you can get other, like, so this is actually something they wrote in the manual, where you get, like, a bar at the bottom of the screen, but you don't quite know what it's for. And
Yes.
for Silver and Shadows, like for Shadow, he has like chaos, like spears and things like that you like projectiles
Yeah.
he throws from his hands, and like things he can power himself up with, and the bar goes down. So that was programmed right, big tick.
Yeah.
For Silver, that bar's for his psychokinesis power, so he can like
Yes.
float, he can throw things, and that goes down as well. So again, tick, big point. For Sonic's, they didn't program it to go down, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. And you get really weird upgrades that I genuinely don't
Yes.
understand. Like, you get the ones you need in the game, like you get the bounce bracelet, you get the
Yeah.
sliding.
The slide. Yeah.
You get this light speed dash, that's the one. For the other ones, like the optional ones, it's like you get one that's like a tornado kick, which I don't think anyone used. You
Yeah,
get
I
one,
don't.
yeah, you get one to slow time, you get one that shrinks Sonic, but because he's shrunk down, he can jump infinitely, which I think is why you don't see baby hedgehogs as much.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why they're born tiny and they just like jump away because
Yes.
yeah, I don't get the parallels. I genuinely don't like why they thought yes, small hedgehog can jump infinitely. It's like I mean technically the
Yeah.
bar was supposed to go down, but even still you're just like how, why, what?
Yeah.
Like there's one you throw, like you go into a first person mode and you throw like a gem and you get sucked to the gem's position.
I'll be honest, I didn't use any of like this. I did buy it all because I had like the
Yeah.
rings. I really just never. I was like, none of this helps me in anything. I never really took too close a look at it, but yeah, all the powers are just so superfluous.
Yeah, the ones you don't need essentially. It's like ones you
Yes.
could play the game and not touch them really.
Yeah, we've kind of been talking mostly about like Sonic and Shadow, but I would kind of want to bring up Silver.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
his sections in particular, so '06 also was not originally planned to be a Sonic game, and I was reading up on this before the podcast. So after their work on Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg,
Ah, yes.
Sonic Team Yeah. Sonic Team was like, we need another new game like this,
Hmm.
and I forget who now. Oh goodness, I did look it up, but this guy he was building a prototype for a physics-based game, and I think he may have been like the director for a while, where he was building this prototype, and then they formed a group to celebrate Sonic's 15th anniversary, and then brought him on, and he was like, "Hey, I have this. Let's use this." And that ended up being Silver. It's weird in Sonic 06 because it's well implemented enough that you could definitely tell that there was a strange amount of effort put into it. It doesn't work well enough that that it's fun to play. So it's this weird middle ground for me.
Do you know what actually reminds me of? It's like a better attempt at what they were trying with Big the Cat. You know how they were trying to like
Um,
show off them.
yeah.
Like I do have a point here. I'm not just comparing Silver to Big the Cat.
Yeah.
But like you know how they were trying to show off like Sega bass fishing, and they thought,
Yes.
like as you said in the last time you were on, it was like they were trying to get people to buy Sega bass fishing. It's like, how do we do
Yeah.
that? Oh, we showed the physics and we showed the gameplay of it through Big the
Yeah.
Cat. It's like maybe they weren't selling anything this time, but it's like it almost feels as if they were trying to show off the physics and things in this game, which
Yeah.
sometimes it works, sometimes it's very temperamental, like the ball,
Yeah.
as we said, trying to get that in.
Yes.
It is kind of interesting what they
Yeah,
attempted.
that's the thing. You can tell that they really planned for it. And I think part of that is because a lot of the prototyping had been done, so they probably already leaned into it because it had, there was something there. The difference between like Big and Silver is that like Big was meant to actually promote something that already
Yeah.
kind of existed. I think Silver was more just a showcase of like, hey, look what we can do.
Yeah.
Evidently not much.
Yeah. Well, was it not the Havoc engine that this game was run off?
Yes.
Yeah, which I always remember them really hammering in that point, being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's the
Yeah.
Havoc engine! Look at the Havoc engine!" And that's the only reason I know about the Havoc engine. It's like, no, sorry, it was either the Havoc engine or it was the Hedgehog engine. It was something like that.
I know Havoc was used to power the physics at least.
Yeah,
I because they did make a big deal about the Havoc engine,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I forget when exactly the Hedgehog engine was made now.
Yeah.
I should have looked that up before.
Oh no.
But
It's like nobody looked at it. But I know
well,
you.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to know.
Oh,
Because I don't want to say anything incorrect. I mean, maybe I already have, but I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about.
I mean, you're gonna piss off like what all five of the Sonic 06 fans left in the
Yeah,
world to listen.
yeah. And, well, hopefully, hopefully they're not going to hear this, but
Oh yeah.
um,
If they do,
yeah.
you can catch Super Shadow 271 on. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, but like the physics, like it's when it worked, it was halfway satisfying to use.
Oh yeah.
Like it was like grabbing someone's rocket and then throwing it back at them. That was fun, but it felt like half the time it wouldn't work. Like you would grab a rocket and they would just throw it somewhere else, or you'd try and pick up something, but you end up picking up the like 5 boxes next to it. It just all felt very simultaneously satisfying and unsatisfying to use.
I think the worst part of it was that there was an ability where you could actually grab the enemy, and obviously, like for the
Oh yeah,
beginning of the game, like they didn't want to make it too easy, or so.
yeah.
Well, no, too easy, yeah. So
Hmm.
you had to basically stun them first, and later on
Yes.
in the game, you get like a ground pound move where you do like the
Yeah.
superhero landing and you stun them and everything, and that's cool. It works.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the beginning, though, you have to walk up to the enemy, pimp slap it. I am not even joking. Backhand.
Yeah.
Backhand that fire lizard and you lift him up, and it's like, this is the weirdest intro to a character I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
like-
he was such a weird concept.
Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like. This is something I do like about Sonic, which I have to say, maybe it's a bit weird, but like, I do have a soft spot for the fact that they try different things with the series.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Whether or not it works, which in this case, obviously, it did
Yeah.
not maybe work as well as they intended, but at least
Yeah.
they tried something like new.
I have to agree. Like, part of Sonic's strength is the fact that he does keep trying things. Where, other series probably would have just kept pumping out the same sort of game. I think they actually do it to a fault.
Yeah.
Because as we see with most styles, they stick around for like a game or two and then they switch it. And it's like, how can you ever refine the ideas that you have if you just keep throwing them away? Part of what makes me hate '06 so much is because I think Sega did consider it a lot like adventure, at least in the sense that they see open world and they refuse to go back to it now. They saw all the criticism and were like, we're not touching it, we're doing something new. And I just hate that, because I think Adventure 1 and 2 are spectacular games. And the fact that '06 killed it for everyone made me hate it that much more, because it's not just that it made people hate Sonic, it made Sega hate the adventure formula.
Yeah. Would you say though, like this game was definitely the final nail in the coffin for Sega trying anything different with the series or the franchise?
No, I wouldn't say so,
Like,
no. Because we still have the boost formula. They still did Lost World, which was a very weird,
true.
idea. They evidently are going to try and do a Breath of the Wild inspired game with Sonic Rangers. So like they
True.
are still trying. It's just I think '06 is the point where they stopped really pumping like effort into it. Because I think I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it hurt them a lot more than they would care to admit. So I feel like '06 was really the last like big budget kind of Sonic game, and ever since it's felt like every other game that they've pumped out since has been kind of a lower budget. Like, hey, maybe if this works, we'll start funding it, but we're not going to put in that initial effort. And I think that's kind of why the boost formula took off, because it's like
Yeah.
people liked Unleashed Day stages, and then they liked colors, and so Sega was like, okay, well then let's start making that with like Generations, and then they kind of ruined it with Forces. So
Yeah.
now new style. I think '06 was really the point where they said like we can't keep pumping money into this.
I can understand why. Like, I can
Hmm.
understand why, from a business point of view, they would say,
Oh,
okay, maybe we shouldn't, do this or that. Like, I
yeah,
totally get it. But
yes,
from a creative standpoint, it seems as if, as you said, because the boost formula was so popular, I'm going to be honest, Unleashed, I am not a huge fan of. Like, I
yeah,
like I like certain aspects of it, like the style and the like globetrotting and
yes,
that. Like, some bits are really, really well done,
yeah,
but
yeah,
some of the gameplay, like having a different button for the homing attack and things, and having
yeah,
the boosts and things, like some of the stuff is just really grating. And obviously,
yeah.
it did get better, but
Yeah, it was also the Werehog stuff was very, very heavily criticized.
oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and I mean for good reason. But I think part of Sega's issue is like they'll encounter mild criticism and then go, "Well, we're trying something else." And
It's not. It's not. It's not you, Sonic 06. It's us. We're going in a different direction. Let's just.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's leave bygones be bygones. It's like no, don't leave it. Like, would you agree and say though that like this is definitely the game that I suppose I wouldn't say solidified. Maybe that's too drastic, but it made Sonic into more of a meme or
yes,
like
oh yeah,
pretty much a joke of a franchise
yes,
compared to what it used to be. Like,
that's exactly the turning point, I'd say. Sonic '06 is kind of really ripe for that type of content because the internet loves just really, really awful content,
yeah,
and then they'll start making memes out of it. It was very smart of Sega to play that up.
yeah.
They still reference the long load times of '06. People love them for it now because haha, they're willing to make fun of themselves. But I think Sega has learned the wrong lesson from it. They continue to make memes, but I just don't think that's the right idea in the long run.
I
So
mean, it's that idea of like it's self-critical humor, isn't it?
yeah,
Like,
it's self-deprecating. Yeah.
yeah, Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
it totally is. It's that idea of oh, haha, look at like I know I make jokes about Big the Cat as well, so I'm not clean. Like.
Yeah,
In this respect, but
oh,
it is
of
very
course.
much like they'll make jokes about, oh, look how silly Big the Cat was, oh, look how silly, this
Yeah.
and that was. And sometimes they have like really good posts where they talk about like the good things about it, but
Yeah, yeah.
most of the time is just memes about how bad the games were, or
Yes.
and I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing that I think is very bad in that regard is the fact that people see Sonic the Hedgehog or Sonic 06 and
Yeah.
they kind of paint the whole series with that brush.
Yes,
Like, don't get me wrong,
exactly.
I'm not gonna like defend something like Shadow the Hedgehog and say like,
Right.
oh, it was the best game of all time, or anything, because it wasn't. It definitely had its
No, no.
flaws. Even with Heroes, like it was still competently done, but there were like bits that was kind of like, oh, I don't know. But that's the
Yeah.
thing. Where do you stop with the paintbrush? Like, if you
Yeah.
say, oh, everything's terrible, then you're going into adventure territory, saying,
Yeah.
oh, it's janky because I played '06 and it's because
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really want to name them, but there is a popular Let's Play series, let's just say, that has played this before. When they played Sonic '06, they actually got into an argument where one of them basically said, I think that Adventure is far better than this.
Oh
And
yeah.
the other guy was like saying, oh no, don't be ridiculous, Adventure
Right.
is like more broken than this, which is a
No.
broken game in some regards, but it's nowhere near
In
as
in
broken
some
as
regards, and also the fact that the ports that they continue to put out are broken
Yeah.
themselves, because the
Oh yeah.
original Dreamcast versions, contrary to popular belief, are actually very stable and very
Yeah.
solid games. But all the like DX and battle ports of the adventure games are all broken because the way the Dreamcast worked was very unique to how most consoles work. So when they ported Adventure 2 over, it broke a lot of, or like the adventure games in general, it
Yeah.
broke a lot of the stuff. They never bothered fixing it, and they continue to put that out as the as
Definitive.
the
Yeah.
definitive version when it's not. I mean, there are positives to those ports, but I think people, because people's only experiences for the most part are those ports, and whenever a glitch happens and they're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
broken game, it's like, well, that's the port. The port had tons of geometry and lighting and other weird issues. The fact that you're basing, you're just generalizing, oh, these adventure games are just so broken, to me is like totally unfair.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing though, at least I remember playing that again and I did encounter a couple of them. Very few and
Yeah.
far between. But even if you
Hmm.
do encounter the glitches, right away you can jump back into the game. Like, you can,
Yeah.
if you know how to play the game, you can play those levels in like, what, 2-3 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
four
If
at a
that.
push, but like you can play these levels really quickly, and if you die,
Yes.
you just jump back into it. And even the later on levels, like they are longer, but not ridiculously so. Like you would never spend about 10 to 15 minutes, I don't think. And I'm just thinking back to like when I played it, and I'm like, please tell me there's not footage of me spending 10 to 15 minutes on an adventure. But for the most part, let's say. Whereas it seems as if it's the norm for Sonic '06 to be like, oh, let's make it like this. Let's make it the Ben-Hur of video games. Let's make it 12 hours long. It's like,
Yeah.
I just want to play Sonic. I just want to go fast. And like, there are some games like that where, I think I said this before when I was talking about the new, I don't know if you played it yet, the new Call of Duty game, Cold War.
I have not.
Oh, they did a thing where they basically tried to make it more like it's basically the same game, as all the other ones, but they like put in an RPG style that
Mm.
kind of slowed it down, and it doesn't really pay off at the end. And you're
Oh.
like with like dialogue options and things, and it's a neat
Yes.
idea, but it's just like maybe I'm just grouchy, and I'm at that stage of my life where I'm like, I just want to play video games. I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to get from point A to point B, shoot things, go through hoops.
Yeah.
I just want to play a video game. I have no time. If I'm gonna go through dialogue, I'm gonna play Persona. But if not,
Yes.
I'm just gonna do this. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Oh goodness. There are a lot of things I was gonna bring up,
Yeah.
but I think at least for me, like I said earlier, '06 was really the point where it went from, yeah, Sonic is good, to like, oh no, Sonic was never good, which is very obviously false.
Yeah.
But like, oh gosh, so many different like thoughts are trying to make their way out right now.
Yeah.
But '06, for all of its faults, I still think has positives. So like,
Okay.
the fact that everyone just kind of gave up after '06 still
Yeah.
felt really weird. And then whenever people, are like, oh, I'm gonna do an honest faith, go back and play these games. And like, I've found that it ends up like they encounter one or two glitches and go like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. Like, blah, blah, blah. It kind of irks me. And like, I don't think '06 is good. Like,
Yeah.
I agree with people, but I'm at least somewhat willing to defend '06 as an idea.
It's false outrage, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
yeah, I think it's kind of also confirmation bias. Like somebody says these games are glitchy, so they look for glitches and encounter a glitch and go, "See, it's glitchy."
and this is kind of a weird side tangent, but I'm not that big, and this is my hot take of the night.
Mhm.
I'm not that big a fan of like the Legend of Zelda games. Like,
Really?
I
Oh, good.
think like the only reason now I'm going to defend myself because I have done a playthrough of like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reason just is because I didn't grow up with them. And
Hmm.
going back to the old games, there's obviously going to be glitches. I would never go into like a Legend of Zelda game with the mindset of I'm not going to enjoy this. This is going to be
Yes.
terrible. I have heard
Yeah.
people complaining about this because if you do, then that's the experience you're going to get. Like, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
with Sonic you are. Or with 06, you are going to encounter a lot of glitches and a lot of weird stuff. But if you go into like any other Sonic game with that same mindset to be like, oh, if this game was terrible, then they're all terrible. And I know
Yeah.
that kind of links back to what we said at the beginning of this episode, where we said, you know, oh, it gets good in the first, you know, like several
Yeah.
seasons or whatever for a show. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's like I suppose the difference is you don't have to be playing from like the very first Sonic game to know
Yeah.
what's happening in this game. You can pick and choose. That's the
Yeah,
beauty
yeah.
of video games. It's like you don't have to play Sonic 06 and then go back
Yes.
to Adventure. You could just skip that and go straight to Adventure or Generations or wherever you want to start.
There's kind of a side thing I sort of want to bring up. I mean, it's still related,
Oh
but
yeah.
I've talked about this a lot, but I love the classics as well, and I think the strength of the classics is repetition, because those games, and even according to Yuji Naka, those games were about learning a level and getting faster, and you're rewarded, or the satisfaction is overcoming things faster and faster. You replay, and you get more Chaos Emeralds, you get faster
Yeah.
levels, you get hit less. Like that was a pretty commonly understood thing back in the day. And if you read reviews of the Sonic games back in the day, they actually called those games really easy. Yeah, because like there were a lot of people who were like, "This game's so easy, you can complete it in a couple hours. Like that's nothing." And it's funny because if you see people go back to, who are like, "I've never played the classics, so let me play them now," and then they'll sit there and they'll go like, "This game's too hard. I can't just go through it quickly." It's like, yeah, that's not the point. And like I use save features in games because there are times I don't feel like getting screwed
Yeah.
out of all that time. I'm never going to deny that that's how the game was designed.
Yeah.
Like I played through Mega Man 1, and Mega Man 1 is a very tough game, and in a lot of ways very similar to Sonic, in the sense of you learn patterns, you get better, you move on. And like I rewound and save scummed and did all that. But I would never be like these games are poorly designed because I can't just get through it on one go. So it's always so mind-boggling to me that people approach Sonic in that same mindset because they think, "Oh, I got to go fast," when it's like that was not really the point. Again, part of why '06 really kills me is because it made people generalize like that, and when it's very clearly not the case. Yeah, sorry to go on that
No,
tangent,
no,
but
not at all. Yeah. No, you make a good point, though. I mean, do you know what it reminds me of? It's like, see, when someone hypes something up for you to say, like, I mean, in the case of Sonic, it's one of the greatest, like, video game icons ever. Up
yeah,
there with
yeah,
Mario, Pac-Man, Mega Man, that kind of thing.
yes,
For, like,
yeah.
classic, video game icons. And you think, oh, this game's going to be great. And then you play it and you're like, oh, this did not live up to my expectations. I'm just thinking in terms of, like, this is terrible, but like difficult games and
Mhm.
yeah, like especially with Sonic 06, like with Dark Souls, which ironically
Yes.
enough, I think I came out near enough the same time as this. But it's like I am not, from what I've played of it, I am not good at Dark Souls. I am not a
Yeah.
huge fan of those kind of games where you die over and over again. I would not say like, oh, this game's stupid, it's terrible. Like it's just not my game or
Yeah.
my kind of game. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Sonic 06 is anybody's or not many people's game. But at the same time,
Yeah.
just because like Sonic 06 is bad doesn't mean that the same standard should be applied to everything else.
Exactly.
Because kind of a closing point, but it's like you do see those like game critics who, and this used to really irk me back in the day, because remember you had the angry video game nerd and the nostalgic,
Yeah.
those kind of reviewers on the internet.
Yes.
And then everybody tried to copy them because they were so
Yeah.
famous. So it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
all this like fake rage which never came off as genuine. It was always, oh, this game's terrible. It's like diarrhea. It's like that. And you're like, this is an awful analysis.
Yeah.
Like, there's one thing to call a game bad and be genuinely outraged. Like, I've done it before in stream, but like if I was going out there with the complete dedication of saying from the outset, oh, this is a terrible game, oh, it's like, because I have to admit, although it was a terrible game, that is by far one of my favourite streams that I've ever done on the channel. Yeah, like playing Sonic 06 for 6 hours is one of my favourite streams, because just like playing through it, chatting with people and things, like it was a bonding experience, let's just say. It's like, you know those films with the like teenagers that see the thing in the woods and it's like we've all been through this, now let's bury it and pretend it never happened. It's like that, but it is just one of those things. And did you feel the same way, like when you streamed this?
Yeah. I mean, I roughly did feel the same way, and I'm actually really glad you brought up two different things.
Yeah.
One, I'm glad you brought up Dark Souls, because I actually make that comparison too, because to me, that's essentially the exact same thing as the classics, right? You die, and you get frustrated, and you overcome. Basically, the difference is, like, Sonic wants you to replay to keep getting faster and faster, versus, Dark Souls is just overcome. I always found that comparison to be fairly apt, and it's funny to me that people will praise, a game like Dark Souls where it's like, oh, well, that's the point. And then you'll sit there and you'll go like, well, that's the point of Sonic, and they'll be like, no, it's just bad. It's like, where's the difference? So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is definitely something I've thought a lot about. I'm also glad that you brought up the AVGN like imitators. I mean no disrespect to AVGN himself, because clearly he was very smart to do what he did, but I kind of resent him for starting that whole culture of just mindlessly kind of exaggerating everything, which, I mean, it's not his fault necessarily. Like, I'm sure he was just doing something that he thought was funny, and other people kind of ripped him off without really understanding. I always resented that, because it's like, just saying, oh, this game's a bunch of diarrhea, like, it isn't constructive in any way. And so many people just instantly latched onto that. And I feel like Sonic got a lot of that, focused on him, which I guess is kind of why I defend him in the way I do, because it's like, I'm not saying Sonic's perfect. Certainly not.
Oh, yeah.
But when somebody goes up to a game that's like Sonic was always bad, and then will play the game not in the way it's intended, and complain every step of the way, and then go, see, I had a bad time, so it's a bad game. It's like, well, you were determined for that.
If you go if you go into a game saying that you're going to have a bad time, then you're going to have a bad time. It sounds like a silly thing to say, but it's genuinely, if you're going to go into a game and say, oh, Sonic's terrible, like, again, going back to that group that plays Sonic games, the Let's Play group. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, so I do.
A certain group who plays these games and they complain, and don't get me wrong, some of their complaints are completely justified. You think, that's absolutely, bull, like how they died there. Other times, you watch and you just think, they're just doing it for the quote-unquote comedy and things.
Yeah.
And I really don't. It's more just the insincerity of it. Like, I'm not even targeting them, I just mean in general, like, for any content creator or reactionist or whatever. Like, whoever's going to... If you're going to react to something, or if you're going to review something, at least, like, make it genuine. At least say, oh, I hate it because, oh, it's stupid that Sonic kissed the woman, or he nearly, like, tore her arm off, or, again, I know I keep bringing it up, but Silver, like, talking about the morality of killing someone for the future. How did that make it past the green screen? Like, everyone's just like, oh yeah, sure, that's fine for a Sonic game. What was the last game? Oh yeah, aliens and guns.
That specific group that you're referencing, I also noticed something that I don't think anyone else really tended to notice, but I picked up on it. And so this Let's Play group was playing Sonic Shuffle. You know what? I'm one of those people that really love Sonic Shuffle. legitimately think it's better than Mario Party. Regardless, um, there's a mini game in it where it's a 3v1, and like you and it's like one person's in a giant hover tank, and then three people are in like smaller hover tanks, and you have to like shoot each other. And they got that mini game on the show or on the Let's Play,
Yeah.
and they go, and one of them offhandedly goes like, "Oh, is that the tank from Sonic?" And the connotation of that is like, oh, how ridiculous that Sonic is in a tank. And I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, but I thought about it and I was like, wait, they played Mario Party 2 many moons ago, and in Mario Party 2 there's a minigame where Mario and company are in tanks, and you have to like lob little cannon shots over. And I was like, why would they make that same joke about Mario being in a tank? Because to me that's far more ridiculous, because Mario never really had any sort of precedent for like violent warfare. but it was funny to me. It stuck out to me because I was like, they would never make that joke if it was Mario. Mario in a tank, oh yeah, that's just Mario. But like Sonic in a tank, oh how ridiculous. Like I can't believe that.
Well, all I'm saying is they must have shot a brick when they saw Shadow the Hedgehog driving around in like armoured cars and, motorcycles shooting guns and things.
Yeah.
They must have just been like, yeah, no.
But I just mean like it was just such a ridiculous thing, because it's like, why are you only applying this to this one thing?
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so indicative of like how people treat Sonic. It's like people are willing to make all sorts of offhanded, how ridiculous, jokes about Sonic, but not about anything else that does the same thing.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's why I defend it in the way I do.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And on that note,
yes.
No, just before we finish up, like, are there any kind of closing thoughts you have just about Sonic 06?
Yeah, I think at least in terms of like Sonic 06's legacy, certainly it has left a very, very negative impact on things. But I don't think it's completely irredeemable. I've never wanted to give off that vibe. I certainly don't like a lot of things about it. I actually think Sega is right to acknowledge it, because I do think it's something that can be learned from.
Yeah.
And does still have things about it. So for what it's worth, Sonic 06, while quite possibly one of the worst games I've played, is still at least interesting to me.
I totally agree.
That's...
It's definitely how you shouldn't take a risk, which I know is a bit of a contradiction. It's like, take a risk, but don't take too much of a risk. Like, if you're going to take a risk, at least plan it out and don't, like, put Final Fantasy character. Do you know what? Like, I know I keep making the Final Fantasy comments, but do you know what actually reminds me of? You know when kids, they have their weird like head cannons where they put this is a really weird pet peeve of mine, Chatsunami exclusive, but it's like when usually it's kids, but when people put like characters together that shouldn't really fit in the same universe, and they don't.
Oh yeah.
Like, let's say Homer Simpson and Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh,
like,
okay. Yeah.
Both of those shows are completely polar opposites. There is nothing similar whatsoever. You're mashing them together. I don't know, maybe it's just my black and white brain going, yeah, not compatible. Like, I'm not creative enough to be like, yes, and Homer Simpson bet up Goku, and then they travel to, the One Piece or whatever. Like jumping from thing to thing, or like old Rick and Morty go to, I don't know, God, I was thinking of some, and I was like, no, actually, that fits. But, like, they go to a soap opera or something, it's like things that definitely don't fit. The point I'm making is, don't mash Final Fantasy and Sonic together ever again, please. Just don't, please.
I mean, well, so here's the thing. I don't necessarily think, like, I'm a weirdo who likes Sonic Chronicles. I think like Sonic and RPG stuff can work.
Oh yeah.
But I think if you are going to try something that risky, you really need to give it the proper time and funding to see it through. Because I think that's the thing. I don't think necessarily that like there's some things that just will not work, but for the most part, like if you're looking at the next game and you were like, okay, we want to do this, and it is totally out of left field, it's like, that's fine, but really put much like a ton of like thought and effort into it, because if you're just trying to rush it out for obligation, it is never going to work regardless of what you're doing.
Absolutely. So
I think that's the biggest lesson.
yeah, moral of the story, guys. If you're going to develop a game, don't do it overnight. You're not at
Yeah,
university anymore. You can't rush it out in a night.
exactly.
Oh,
What
yeah.
about you? Do you have final thoughts on
Oh,
06?
I would just agree and just emphasize, like, just what you said about it's a good learning curve. Because on the one hand, I think, terrible game and everything, and the usual, like, it had intention behind it. You can definitely see they were trying for
Yes.
like this grand adventure for
Right.
Sonic, because if it succeeded, then people probably would have called this like Sonic Adventure 3.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
not
certainly.
officially, but they definitely would have called it something. And then we would have got like series after series of like
Yeah.
Soliana, like a silver spin-off game, a shadow
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Like maybe like there's an alternate universe out there where this game succeeded, and that's a scary thought. But the
Yeah.
fact, but the fact that it did succeed, which is or it would have succeeded. Sorry, I'm speaking hypothetically. It bombed
Yeah.
here, but it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Like it's like a beautiful mess, I would say. It's like something that I admire, the fact that they tried something different and they tried something so grand. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of things that definitely should have either been put in the cutting room floor, or they just shouldn't have done it at all, but they did.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just think, well intentioned, but not fully realised, I would say,
Yeah.
like, to kind of sum it up. And it's a shame because now we're kind of stuck in a rut where the game series are, and again, it's a game about a blue hedgehog and he's running around fast, but we're in
Yeah.
that stage now where the stories seem to be very generic. Like, as much as I
They really are.
like things like Sonic Generations, like, I really enjoyed playing the game, I did not
Hmm.
enjoy the story. The story
Same.
was just so generic and, oh look, I'm Sonic, I run fast, look at my boost.
Yep.
And the same with Forces, oh, I'm Sonic, I'm getting tortured, which again,
Yep.
different issue altogether. But oh, look at
Yeah.
me boost. And they've never really been able to shake that off.
Yeah.
It's just because it's safe and it works. Like, they do still try different things, like with Lost World and things, but I feel as if this, as you were saying before, this is a game that definitely curbed their hubris, as it were, of trying
Yeah.
to try something, grand and massive, and now
Yeah.
it just seems now to be like references and
Yeah.
just slapstick comedy. Which, I know, I
Yeah.
get it. Again, for the purposes of, for legal purposes, this is a joke. But,
Yeah.
like, I know it's a children's game and everything, but there used to be a time where at least they tried to make it for everyone. Like the Adventure
Yeah. Yeah.
series. Like, you could easily go back and play them no matter what age you are and still have a blast. With some of the newer
Yes.
games, although they're fun, like, you do get put off by some of the dialogue and everything, and that's
Yeah.
a whole different thing. And the
Yes,
dialogue's not...
definitely.
And again, the dialogue is not by any means perfect in this game. It's not great, but
Sure.
at least they tried something. They had an idea.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that. They had an idea. Was it realised? Nah. What was the
No.
gameplay good? Nah.
No.
Like,
No.
they did not hit like the goals they were supposed to, but honestly, like, bless them for trying, because
Yeah.
the funny thing, I have to admit, like, you mentioned this at the very beginning where you said that they've got a fan-made PC port of this game.
Yes. Yeah.
Apparently this was supposed to come out for the PC, like,
Yeah.
officially,
It was. Mm-hmm.
and then they never did it. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of weird, because you think it would be easy enough just to port over, but then again, if they hadn't ported
Yeah.
it over and then the game was like received that poorly, they would have just been like,
Yeah.
no, I don't think I will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sonic Team has said that they thought, like, they took '06 off of digital storefronts because they were like, it's hurting the brand by being up. So I'm sure from their perspective, it's like, we could put this game that's received poorly, on PC, but let's not. But also, I did want to mention something about '06 too, that
Yeah.
it's also very much a product of what was going on around it, because with the departure of Yuji Naka, and apparently Yuji Naka is not a very good person to work under, the splitting of teams into Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic '06, the difficulty of developing for the PS3, and the weird insistence on it coming out in 2006. I think it just all culminated in this. So in a sense, it's a lot of its flaws are just from the fact that so many other things happened around it that it's hard for me to really completely hate it, because also, it's just had all those things.
And again, I don't keep saying closing statement, but genuinely, last one.
Mhm.
Like, I genuinely feel as if, like, when people look at Sonic 06, they don't completely take into consideration the landscape of what Sonic was like at the time. As I
Yes.
said before, 2001-ish was,
Yeah.
like, when Adventure came out, so that's when it was on top. Like, that's when
Yes.
it came out for the GameCube, and although
Absolutely.
Sega is like a hardware brand, it's completely failed. After the Dreamcast, that was it. But
Yep.
at the same time, they were still pumping out games and it was coming out cross-platform. And as I said, although I didn't like Sonic Heroes, it was still popular. People loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Why, I don't know, but I'm working.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm working. Yeah, then 2005 rocked along and Shadow the Hedgehog came out, which everyone was initially hyped at, I think, because Shadow was a fan favourite until they saw the trailer.
yes. Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, that's the weird thing about Shadow. It's like people were excited he got a spin-off, but also like horrified that he's carrying real guns and all
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So,
it's like a cartoon gun. Oh, sorry, a cartoon hedgehog carrying
yes,
a real life gun, and then you get to
exactly.
the actual game, and it's the exact same models that they used for Sonic Heroes, and
Yeah.
yeah, I still hate that. I'm like, why? Why would you
Yeah.
do this? And then
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like Sonic was on shaky ground. Like,
he was. And
and it,
also Shadow and Heroes share an engine,
mhm.
because they wanted to make an engine that would like last across multiple games, and something that they could use for the hardware that they weren't used to. So when '06 was trying to use an entirely new engine for a new generation, that's just an extra barrier
Mhm.
on top of all the other things going on. So it's all a product of its time and
It's
its
just
circumstances.
of all the engines though. Of
Oh,
all
I
the
know.
I can't believe I'm referencing Casablanca in a Sonic 06 in retrospect. It's just like, of all the engines to walk into my stream, and they walk into mine. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
even, do you know what I think the saddest thing is? The fact that they called it Sonic the Hedgehog. And you might be
yeah,
thinking, you're like, why? Like, people listening, you might be thinking, oh, why is that like a big thing? It's the fact that it implies that this was the reboot. It's like,
yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog. There's no subtitle for this. There's
Yes,
no
yeah,
like addition. Like we call it Sonic 06. That's the fan
yeah,
name for it. Like
yeah,
it's not called officially. It's not called Sonic 06. It's just Sonic the Hedgehog. It's not Sonic
yeah,
Next Gen. It's not anything.
yeah,
And it's clear that they wanted this to be the reboot. They wanted this to be the game that
yeah,
they were going to play, and like, this is what was going to kick off the new franchise. And Jesus Christ,
yes.
imagine if this game succeeded and then the rest
Oh,
of the games had like max sections. Oh,
oh,
that would
my nightmares.
that would be horrifying. And on
Oh
that
man.
note, speaking of running away from my problems,
Hmm.
yeah, well, as always, Shadow, thank you
Yes,
so much for
of
joining me
course.
for
Thank
this
you.
retrospective. So, before we finish up, where can these lovely people listening at home find your content?
I have, of course, my main Twitch channel, which is Super Shadow 271. Or, I mean, it's my only Twitch channel, but I have a main YouTube channel, Super Shadow 271, which I have been working on, but progress is a little slow because of real life stuff. I have a Stream Archives YouTube channel, so if you want to catch up on any of my past streams, sadly, I don't have my '06 playthrough uploaded because it's saved on my hard drive and it's going to take ages to upload.
Yeah.
But for a good chunk of my past streams, I have, Stream Archives YouTube channel, Super Shadow 271 Stream Archives. I have a Twitter account where you can follow me and you'll know when I'm going live, and I sometimes retweet giveaways and talk about gaming stuff, so that's cool. And I mean, I guess I do plan on having an Instagram at some point, but I just haven't gotten around to taking any like photos or anything. So eventually I will have that, but for now those are the main things.
First the Instagram, then the TikTok. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah. I know you'll see me flossing on
Yeah.
on TikTok soon enough, I guess.
God. Please don't go to the dark side.
No, it'll be a slow descent into madness.
Oh, God, yeah. About 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
All I
Oh,
could,
oh, you know what? I also have a Discord server too, if anyone's interested.
yeah.
That's a thing.
I was gonna say go check out Shadow because genuinely, your content's awesome. It really is.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
your streams are very chill.
Yeah, it's been really fun to be on here. I always have a great time. Your content is also very cool too. I
Oh,
always wish
thank
I
you.
could come more often, but it's just my life is so hectic right now. It's hard to hard to keep
Oh
up.
no, no problem.
But yeah, no, I love talking about this. If you ever want me back on, feel free to just message me and I'll probably be free. So.
Oh, believe me, like if it comes to Sonic, you're definitely my go-to person.
Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, we could chat for like definitely longer than the time we've been on.
Oh yeah,
About it.
definitely. I wish I could just talk forever about this
Yeah.
kind of thing because I could. But also, you mentioned how like my streams are chill, and usually they are. But I just recently had some friends over and we played Need for Speed Carbon. Oh
Nice.
my god, what a hectic stream that was!
Yeah.
Very occasionally, I'll have my friends in real life over, and we will have some really wild streams.
Yeah. I really need to start doing that as well. Obviously,
Yeah,
because of the lockdown and everything, we
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
had chances like to meet up, like my friends and I. But I need to get people over, just purely for the under the guise of yes, I'm having a dinner party. And then when they
Yeah,
come,
yeah,
it's like
exactly.
yes, I'm sorry, I lied. All I have are Doritos in this microphone. Now let's get talking.
Yeah.
Let's get talking about whatever topic we've chosen. Birdemic 2, why not? Let's go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if I were near you, I
Oh
would
yeah,
be down.
definitely.
But sadly, I don't think that's possible.
No, not in that. Well, not in this day and age currently, but one day.
Well, yes.
One day.
Yeah, one day for sure.
Oh, definitely. If you would like to see more of my content personally, you can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, of course, YouTube, Facebook as well, and of course Twitch under the name Satsunami42. If you want to see a very crazy and chaotic Let's Play series, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, my friends and I do a Let's Play series called T-Posing over on YouTube. So yeah, if you like Heavy Rain, if you like Breath of the Wild, and if you like shenanigans in Warzone, then yeah, feel free to watch it. Also, if you want to check out more episodes of the podcast, you can catch me on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube as well. We've got a YouTube channel for Chatsunami. It's literally just called Chatsunami. And all good podcast distributors. So if you've got a podcast app, just look up Chatsunami. If you've got to this episode, you probably have a feel for what this podcast is about. But if not,
Yes.
we talk about video games, we talk about films, anime, streaming as well. I've also done a couple of streamer spotlights where, of course, I have talked to you as well, Shadow.
Yep.
Again, great episode. I listened back to it. It was a lot of fun doing them.
It was so much fun. This was so much fun too.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, go check out that episode. If you want more content from myself and Shadow, then go check it out. That's currently live on both YouTube and Anchor, Spotify, anything, whatever you use to listen to these.
yes.
And yeah, as always, guys, thank you all so much for stopping by and listening. It's honestly much appreciated, and it's honestly a blast. Thank you again,
Yeah.
Shadow. Sorry,
Oh, of course.
I sound like a broken British record, but thank you. But thank
No,
you so
no,
much.
thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm
Yeah.
honored to be on, and I have a blast whenever I do this. So if you ever want me back on,
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
yeah, and I can talk about other things too if you
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
me to.
no.
So
Yeah.
I do know quite a few things.
It's like, no, only Sonic.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So yeah, guys, as always, stay safe, stay awesome, and
Yes.
most importantly, don't play Sonic 06.
yeah.
Nah,
Just watch a let's play.
Yeah, watch a Let's Play. If you somehow get into like one of those like weird creepypasta markets with the realistic graphics pouring out, and then they've got a copy of Sonic 06, yeah, pick it up. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
yeah, and also do not download the DLC for the game. I know we didn't touch
yes.
on it, but don't. It's just harder levels. Why would you do that
Yeah.
to yourself?
Yeah.
And on that note, stay hydrated. Bye,
Yes.
guys.
Bye.